through just a roll call of who we have.
That'd be great.
Perfect. So on the line, we have Dana Coletti from the American Postal Workers Union, Local 230. We have Janice Kelby from APWU Local 230 as well. We have Bob Baker from the New Hampshire National Rural Letter Carriers Association, Carrie Gessel with the New Hampshire National Association of Letter Carriers, and Bill Brickley, also with the National Association of Letter Carriers. And we also have a number of reporters on the line. We have WMUR, Kevin Landrigan at the Union Leader, Damon Steer at the Conway Daily Sun, Rick Green at the Laconia Daily Sun, Paul Hayes at the Caledonian Record, Sam Brody at the Daily Beast, Alana Abramson at Time Magazine, Duan Macardo at TV Asahi America, and Kathy McCormick at the Associated Press. So that's everyone that's on the line, and I'm going to hand it over to you, Senator.
Well, thanks very much, Madison, for the roll call, and thank you to all of the postal officials who are on the call with me this morning, and to the reporters who have been covering this story. We've been hearing from people in our offices that they're concerned about delays that they're seeing with Postal Service and what's causing that and what that means. We've heard from veterans who have had challenges with their prescription drug deliveries. We've heard from people who have sent payments for bills and they have taken longer than usual to get delivered to people. Hearing from folks in rural communities who don't have other means of transportation, who are worried because we know how important the Postal Service and all of its employees are to ensuring communication across this country. You know, I like to say that the Postal Service is the only federal agency that's actually in the Constitution. And I was listening to a historian the other day who was talking about the fact that the reason that was the case is because the early founding fathers and mothers understood just how important it was to be able to communicate across the colonies, because that helped to unify the colonies and keep people moving in the same direction. And it is certainly very true now. And we know that all of us know that the Postal Service has been operating under very challenging conditions. Now we have a Postmaster General who doesn't have experience in the Postal Service, who is one of the president's big fundraisers, and he's a political appointee, and he's making changes that are raising real concerns. So it's really helpful to me for you all to take the time this morning to talk to me about what you're seeing and what you're hearing from your members about what they're seeing in our post offices across New Hampshire and across the country. So I am gonna stop with that and turn it over to, I think, Bob Baker to be, as the president of the New Hampshire National Rural Letter Carriers Association. Bob, I don't know if you want to go first or if Janice does, but whoever would like to, please let me know what you're hearing.
Okay, I'll do it.
Good, thanks, Janice. We need to make sure everybody's unmuted too.
Yeah, I mean, it's just so obvious now with everything that's going on, how important it is to save a public postal service. And a big piece of that is funding. The Postal Service shouldn't even be in, it's not a political issue. It wasn't created to be a political issue, and we can't let that happen. I mean, we need stimulus aid. Everybody knows the Postal Service already had problems since the Postal Accountability Act was passed in 2006. That needs to be fixed, but that's a longer term problem. Our short term problem is COVID hit the Postal Service just like it did every other place in the United States. And we need postal relief stimulus. I think that most Americans, if they got a voice in this, would have picked the Postal Service way ahead of the cruise lines for getting stimulus aid. It's ridiculous that they're trying to destroy. It is not the postal business, it is the Postal Service. And that's what we need to keep in mind and that's what we need to preserve. It's just insane that we've given stimulus aid to, I mean, there's places that have gotten it multiple times by dividing their companies up and collecting from the government on numerous occasions, and yet we haven't gotten any for the Postal Service yet. I mean, we had postal workers dying during this whole COVID thing, but they keep delivering the mail, obviously not the ones who died, but we have been impacted very seriously by it. There have been extra expenses because of employees being off of work. We still have 12,000 postal workers across the country that are unable to work, either because they're in quarantine themselves, they're on sick leave, or they have childcare problems or immune deficiencies. So that already created a problem that necessitated additional overtime to get that work done. Any business that loses part of their employees is going to experience that. And then you add to that the extra expenses for PPE. And then you add to that the fact that we lost revenue from first class mail. And package mail has picked up, but it's also more expensive to deliver. We just can't let this be a political thing that ruins elections or anything else. I mean, people need us.
Thanks, Janice. I think you put it really well and pointed out that the Postal Service has always been nonpartisan. This should not be about partisan politics. It should be about service to the people of this country, as you say. Can one of you speak to the proposed changes that the Postal Service is implementing with respect to having trucks leave the centers before they're necessarily full, and the cutting off of overtime, and also what the impact of that is on people delivering the mail?
Well, I could talk about in the plant, and then maybe Terry would like to pick up with how
That'd be great.
carriers are impacted when the mail gets there. But right now, like what we do at the plant in Manchester is process the mail to put it in delivery point sequencing order. So it's worked on big machines. We pull it down in that specific order and send it out to the station so that the letter carrier has it in order to deliver. If, for example, if you were going out in the Keene, Peterborough area, and one of the small towns hadn't finished their mail on the machine, it was running 10 minutes late, we used to either wait that 10 minutes to get that mail to make sure it got out, or we would arrange alternate delivery to get it out as soon as it got pulled down off the machine. Not anymore. According to DeJoy's changes, that mail can wait till tomorrow. So that puts a day's delay on it at least already, and then they incur even more delays once it gets to the station, which I'm sure Terry could tell you about, or Bill.
Great. Terry or Bill, do either of you want to add to that? And maybe you can also talk about the reports that they're planning to remove the mail sorting machines from the Manchester Center.
Dana would probably be a good one to talk about that.
Yeah, I'll defer to Dana for the plant, because he's the boots on the ground there. And I'm Terry Gessel, state president of the letter carriers here in New Hampshire. And I just want to go back to mention what Janice mentioned about the prefunding mandate. Just a reminder that the prefunding mandate back in 2006 accounts for 92% of the losses that the Postal Service has endured over these last few years, and that 100% of those could be reported in the last 5 years. And that could all be fixed by legislation or executive order. And if you're making changes to improve the Postal Service, it seems, cart before the horse, actually, to do otherwise.
Terry, do you want to explain to everybody exactly what that legislation did? Because I think there's confusion about that.
There is, and most don't remember the 2006 mandate, which mandated the Postal Service, our public universal service to every address in America, to pre-fund $5 billion a year for retirees' health care 75 years in advance. Now, you hear other things out on the media that are not accurate. It's 75 years in advance before employees are even born yet. So this mandate went in, and it has it basically put an albatross around the neck of the Postal Service. No other business is required in this country to pay $5 billion a year out of, and remember, the Postal Service makes their money on the sale of stamps, parcels, business mailings, advertising. Throw on top of that a pandemic where businesses shuttered for a month or two. They're not sending business mail out. Why would they? People are staying home. Right. Makes perfect sense that we've been really hurt during this pandemic. They really need the stimulus, just like the hotels, the cruise lines, the airlines. They've been affected as well. And never mind the fact that all this time, carriers have been out delivering every day, door to door, delivering medicine checks. And you know what? You never hear about that. But it's like the carriers are doing their due diligence every day. It's safe, it's secure, and I'll tell you, and they do check on, and they're in the neighborhoods every day. Watchful eyes of the neighborhood. They provide a wonderful service. And for anything to disrupt that is sad. We would be isolating a lot of people. And they also check on the elderly. If the mailbox gets full, they make an attempt to knock at the door, contact their supervisor, and it's, they really do more than just deliver mail to boxes. So
I think that's a really important point to remind everyone about. And just to clarify, the Postal Service is the only agency in the federal government that has been forced to pre-fund its pension.
Absolutely, and it was for healthcare. And down the road, things can change, and there could be, different. There could be public healthcare. There could be a lot of other ways of saving in that area. Just hypothetical. But no, I just think, and I think the focus today on the mail-in ballots is interesting because we've got, I've got some figures here actually. The 139, and back in 2016, 139 million Americans voted. 32 million mailed in their ballots. This year, voter turnout could surpass 150 million, and vote by mail could double, okay? Millions will drop it off in person or in the drop boxes or at their polling places. And I think there's a lot of disinformation out there about the ballots and mail-in voting. I'll tell you, I delivered mail 29 years, and Bill can attest to this as well. He delivered over 30 some years. We know how they handle the mail-in ballots. They're secure. They are taken right to your town halls. And it's just, what I'm hearing is just ridiculous as far as the misinformation that's out there on mail-in voting. So I think that's something we need to clear up,
Absolutely. Terry, I was on a call earlier last week, actually, to talk to a chamber of commerce in the state. And one of the women on the call asked about mail-in ballots. And she thought when we talked about sending out ballots to everyone, it meant we were sending them to everyone in the state or everyone in the country. She didn't understand that we're talking about sending them to registered voters. That's who gets the absentee ballot application. And again, I think there's a lot of confusion and misinformation that needs to be clarified. So,
yeah, could I add that?
Sure.
I mean, it's largely a scare thing that's going on. I mean, it shouldn't be like a political issue at all, but it's very much a scare tactic right now. Honestly, postal workers know how to treat ballots. They know that they're given priority. I can think of a case back, my husband had Parkinson's, and I went to get him an absentee ballot, and I picked it up at town hall. And when I went to return it, at that time, nobody could return it. Like, they've changed the law slightly since then. But I went to return it, and the woman said she couldn't take it. And I said, what do you mean you can't take it? And she said, the person has to deliver it themselves. And I said, well, if he could, he probably wouldn't be voting absentee. She said, well, you have to mail it. And I was a little bit concerned because it was close to the election. And I was afraid that it would get sent from Franklin to Manchester to get back to Franklin again to make it to the town clerk. So when I went into the post office, I asked the clerk, I said, is there any way this can just get sorted to Franklin instead of going to Manchester? She said, oh, it's a ballot. We take those down there every day, no matter when we get them. That's what postal workers do, okay? This is really just such a scare tactic. I saw an interesting little thing that said that the Postal Service processes about 450 million pieces of mail every day. That if you took all the election mail in the whole country, postal workers could process it in 8.5 hours, okay? So that gives you a little perspective of what we do, what we're capable of, and you have to go out of your way to mess up our ability to deliver these ballots. And we can't let that happen.
No, that's right. Dana or Bill, do either of you want to speak to the sorting machines that are being removed and what the rationale is for that and what you think the impact will be?
I can speak to it.
Thanks.
Currently, we were notified on June 9th officially from what we call our area that 5 machines are targeted for removal. They have already dismantled one of the machines, an AFSM 200. It is an automated flat sorting machine. This is a machine that sorts magazines, large envelopes like legal size envelopes, circulars that come in the mail for advertising, things like that. The Manchester plant had 2 of those. They removed one, sold it. So right there, you're looking at a 50% reduction in sorting capacity. And I use that terminology because obviously whatever the machine is capable of sorting, it's capable of sorting. If you have 2 of them, you double that capacity. If you remove one, obviously you've cut it in half, which is a drastic reduction. In addition, no, go ahead, excuse me.
Well, so did the postmaster in those new orders that he issued, did he give any rationale for why he wanted to dismantle the sorting machines and sell them?
The only thing we've gotten in writing is the blanket statement we so often get for any of the reasons they do is mail volume reduction, mail volume reduction. So it just seems a little unusual that around an election time, they would start reducing machines where the service has, if anything, increased its necessity with the COVID-19 pandemic. Many more people are refusing to go out or to travel very far outside their homes. So in this condition right now, the service is more valuable than ever. In terms of package delivery, we were having weekly meetings about what we call SPLY, which is same period last year. And for packages that are being delivered currently, we are almost at 30 to 40% higher than last year. I mean, this is really Christmas time volumes at a time where we really are normally the lowest amount of sortation that we have, because summertime, a lot of people take vacations, so a lot of people aren't doing mailing, things like that, because they're relaxing, or at least trying to. I don't know about this year, but so we really have had a dramatic increase in sortation. It's also been, as postal workers, we're impacted as the rest of, the American public is, and, people have childcare issues coming to work on a regular basis because of whether or not they're more susceptible to infection or disease. These are all things that have to be taken into consideration. And yet consistently, they're still trying to get the mail out. They're still sorting the mail to get it to the offices so the carriers can deliver it to the public.
And so Dana, what's the impact of losing that sorting machine long term? I know that there are some ballots that people are suggesting need to be in bigger envelopes. Would they have to go through that kind of a sorting machine normally? And what will happen to those packages, those ballots? Will it take longer to deliver them? Are there more people going to be pulled off to do that piece of sorting? What happens now?
Historically, anytime ballots come through the mail, I mean, they're very distinct the way that they look. They are a little bit larger than like a standard letter envelope, and I think that's by design so that you can see them when they're in the mail stream. When we're culling the mail and putting it on the machines, all the mail is jogged and stacked. So in other words, it's shaken. So it's uniform. The ballots would stick up. So if these are going directly there, the clerk, or it would be a clerk that's sorting the mail, would pull them out and prioritize them so that they could be directly taken to their destination, as opposed to the possibility of, you know, getting torn in a piece of machinery or something like that. So realistically, you know, the infrastructure we have now, even with their attempt to reduce what I call sorting capacity, we still have the staffing, we still have the machines, the capability to make sure that these ballots are not delayed, even with their attempts to slow the mail overall down. That issue is, I guess, thwarted, for lack of a better term, because we prioritize these ballots. And if you think about it, you know, we have a few 100,000 people, you know, that could potentially be voting. All the mail comes through this sorting facility for New Hampshire. So we can sort millions of pieces of mail in a day. And so that would be like a fraction of what the capacity or capability is for sorting it. So there's no question we would still be able to perform our duties and functions.
That's great. And what about the elimination of overtime? How is that affecting people and delivery?
I think it's just, you know, the nature of the beast. They're trying to save money, so they're eliminating overtime in some places. So unfortunately, if a clerk's working 5 days a week, we're a 7-day operation. Obviously, day 6 and 7 is overtime because so slowing down mail, delaying the mail. With the new ESOS program on top of that, that's the expedited to street afternoon sortation that really impacts the carriers. But it's like a logjam. The mail needs to flow. And when they decide to stop it and not send it on with an extra trip or something like that, that mail's already, like as Janice said earlier, already delayed by a day. And now, but it's all about flow. So if you have something blocking the flow, when more mail comes in the next day, it's just like, it's a compounding effect that really can delay mail considerably, getting to the customer, whether it be like a package, the VA mails all of their medicine through the Postal Service. So these are, you know, vital things that need to be getting to their delivery point in a timely fashion.
Absolutely. I understand that Bob's sound is now fixed. So I don't know, Bob or Bill, if either of you want to add something.
I'll just jump in on what Terry had to say about that $5 billion.
Yeah.
I don't know how much people know about on budget, off budget, but once that $5 billion is transferred to the federal government, it's now on budget. So even if you wanted to give that back to the Postal Service, it has to be offset. So people just seem to think that that's set aside someplace strictly for the Postal Service. It is not. It's just rolled into the general fund. As far as operations are concerned, if they continue down this track and mail is not processed out of the plants and gets to the AOs, then every time something stops, that carrier, those clerks, they have to do 2 days of work in that one day. Well, people are getting sick of that, and I can assure you that I have heard from carriers already that they've almost had enough. They're about ready to walk away. You're going to lose a lot of your senior workforce if things continue down this path.
Yeah, and that's very troubling, because to replace folks with that kind of experience takes time. And in this work environment where the coronavirus is still affecting hiring and who is able to go to work and who's not, because of childcare and, as you all pointed out, pre-existing conditions, other factors that influence folks' ability to be on the job. It creates a real ongoing challenge.
I don't want to bash management, but I'm going to. The Postal Service spends a lot of money in hiring, processing, training people, and then they throw them out into the field and they just treat them like dirt. We've got carriers that are working 7 days a week, have to fight for a day off to take care of personal things. I understand managers have a job to do, but they really need to do something about retention, our temporary people, and even retaining our senior people, because like I say, they've about had enough of this crap that's coming down from above. So that's going to be part of our issue, is right now we don't have the people to do the job. And they don't seem to understand that if you treated people a little bit better, they might stick around.
So I know that the board of the Postal Service has said that back when we were doing the CARES Act, their recommendation was at least $25 billion to keep the Postal Service operating through the fall. Is that correct? And in the HEROES Act that passed the House, I believe there was $70 billion for the Postal Service. There is nothing in the proposal that Mitch McConnell put on the floor for the Senate. So do you all have, is there a figure that you're using that you hope that will be provided as we're trying to get another legislative package done to address the coronavirus outbreak?
I think that the Board of Governors originally passed saying that they wanted $75 billion. That's what I thought they originally did. It seems like so much has gone on since then. But I think that the unions have been together in getting estimates of $25 billion to get us out of the immediate pinch. I mean, obviously, further down the road, there still needs to be reform to fix the Postal Accountability Act. I mean, but that's not money. That's just legislation to undo the damage that was done. But for COVID-related aid and to keep the Postal Service from going downhill, we need $25 billion.
Great. Bill, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, first, thanks for all you've done for keeping the Postal Service a public enterprise. When 2 years ago, when the administration came up with the idea to privatize the Postal Service, you and Senator Hassan were two of the original co-sponsors in the Senate bill to keep to prevent them from privatizing the Postal Service. So first, I want to thank you for that.
Yep. Thanks very much.
And as far as what's happening now is it's like a manufactured crisis with this that the Postal Service can't process that mail. As far as the election mail, it would be increase our mail volume between 1% and 2% from September. This is all election mail, not just ballots, from September through November. 1% and 2%, that's minuscule. And considering we already have a depressed economy, we have less first class mail than usual. That just fits in. It's a manufactured crisis. We can process not just the ballots, we can process all the political mail. And we go to the extreme to get all the political mail moved every single day. So, but one issue that when it comes down to this is that we can process the mail, but it's in what we saw in the few states that had problems with the election mail is the state election boards, the local election boards. They're the entity that's, that has to, process the ballots on election day and all that. So I think we really want to see them get properly funded too with all this. Like, we're doing our part in this deal, but the Treasury has to reimburse them for their additional cost.
Well, you're absolutely right, Bill. And as you may remember, back in the CARES Act, we got $400 million for states to help with election security, to help with things like addressing any challenges with election in any way, whether it was mail-in ballots or whatever it was. New Hampshire got about 3.2 million of those dollars, and I think everybody has recognized that it wasn't enough to address the challenges that we're facing in the environment that we're in with not just the pandemic and the concerns that that raises for people, but also, as Terry pointed out, the misinformation and the deliberate disinformation that is being issued on a regular basis by foreign entities who are trying to influence the election, by other groups that would like to disrupt our election. So there's a lot of reason why we need to provide some additional help to states and to election officials, as well as the post office, to make sure that this election runs smoothly and that every vote gets counted. But as you point out, the additional election mail is a very small percentage, and this is a manufactured crisis. The real challenge is ensuring that the Postal Service can continue to operate to address the needs that people in New Hampshire and across this country have, particularly in our small towns, rural communities where many people have a harder time. We don't have public transportation. People have trouble having that postal delivery every day so that people can hear from, whether it's birthday cards or paying bills or getting prescription drugs. It makes a huge difference. And I know that's why we're hearing from people, and why I'm sure all of you who deliver the mail are getting such appreciation from people across New Hampshire, because they understand how tough the job is and how important it is to their lives.
That's the dichotomy. The dichotomy with all this is that our customers are very thankful. They like leave notes to the carriers. They do a lot for the carriers during this pandemic. They've been so appreciative. So that's our day-to-day carrier lives. We get a lot of love from our carrier, from our people we deliver mail to. And then you go home and you see the news and you see the administration bashing the letter carriers. It's like, it's a disconnect in what's happening or how the American people feel about this.
It is, for sure. And I know that the House is coming back in this week to address, hopefully, address legislation. They are planning to hold hearings. The Senate has hearings scheduled for September. It's not clear. And others have called on Mitch McConnell to bring the Senate back in as well, though he has so far not responded to those calls. But hopefully we will see the House act, and that will mean additional pressure on the Senate to come back and to get something done to address this, because we cannot, as everybody has pointed out so eloquently, we cannot let the Postal Service go under. Any other points that any of you would like to make, or you think we've missed something that you are concerned about?
I just want to say that the 210,000 letter carriers, and just to bring out a couple of facts, are totally committed, obviously, as they do every day, performing at the highest level. And as far as security, the Postal Service, protecting the security of the mail is the highest priority. And tampering with any piece of mail or slowing it down intentionally is strictly prohibited, obviously, and protected by federal law. So I think anybody that is questioning the security of that or the ballots, they need to know that they face prosecution. And remember, these carriers, as in the plant and in their trucks, they're on camera. There's a lot of security there, and it's also watched by the Postal Inspection Service. And so the security is there. The capacity to deliver the ballots and mail is certainly there, as it ramps up now for like peak season for holidays. So hats off to all the mail carriers out there and postal employees, because they have continued on during this pandemic, and they really need to be praised and not, trashed.
Absolutely, Terry, and thank you for clarifying. I don't want anybody to misinterpret when I was talking about election security. The focus of those dollars was around voter hacking into voter lists and concern about disinformation on social media and on social networks. It wasn't concerned that that mail was not going to be secure once it had been sent to the post office.
Yeah, no, and I just wanted to make that, bring out that
thank you.
fact. And certainly, those are a little different areas, but definitely it's secure. I mean, we lived it for years. And we'll tell you that before we left an office, every piece every day went out. And that's the way it was. And the last thing you did before you left the office was you got mail from what they consider the hot case. Last minute mail went out the door. They would come and check your cases. They would be checking after you left for the street. I mean, so it's that secure, and that, it's very good. And just hopefully we will give them, or they'll get the funding they need to continue door to door to every neighborhood in the country. So.
Yes, I hope so. I hope that this is a wake-up call that means it will force action in Congress, not just in the short term to deal with the election, but in the long term, because that's what we need to see.
Thank you so much for all you've done.
I just wanted to echo what was already said. We really appreciate having representatives that believe in the Postal Service and that honor the work we do. And you've always supported us in trying to maintain a public postal service, and that means the world to us. It's very strange time when postal workers come in to work. When they first get trained, the first thing that's drummed into their head is you can't delay the mail. If you took a 2-minute too long break, you would be threatened with being charged with delaying the mail. And now we have a Postmaster General for the entire country who's delaying the mail. It's just insane. So thank you so much for the work that you do.
Well, thanks, Janice. It is. It doesn't make any sense. You know, every school child learns about the Pony Express to deliver the mail, and neither rain nor snow nor sleet. And that motto, I think, sticks with every American in terms of appreciation for the work that the Postal Service does. And it is so disappointing and really sad for so many people that we are seeing things turned on their head right now for partisan political reasons, for, I don't know, what else, greed, whatever, that that's affecting the ability of people to be able to get what they need through the Postal Service. So thank you all so much for what you continue to do. I hope you will forward to all of the members that you represent my thanks for their efforts, and that we will keep working to try and address the challenges that you're facing, and to see if we can make sure that we can get a resolution that not only gets us through this election, but addresses the long-term needs that the Postal Service has. And I just want to finally conclude by saying that in addition to Madison Lightfoot, who's from my office, we also have a couple of other people on the call who are able to address concerns that you may have. Erica Anhalt, who is just popped up on the screen, is waving. Sarah Weinstein is on listening. So if there are issues, Sarah Holmes is my state director here. If there are issues that you have that you need to share with us, please don't hesitate. Call our offices, let us know what the concern is so that we can try and be responsive. And again, thank you all so much for everything that you're doing every day.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.